Hello, Garland Nixon here, and we've got writer, director, activist, all around good guy, Matt Weinglass, straight out of LA, and we're going to talk about what's happened with the LA fires. Let's talk. Hello, Garland here, just making sure I got everything set up. All right, Matt Weinglass, he's an actor and a writer and director and producer and all that stuff in Hollywood. And he's an activist and he does everything, Syria, Ukraine, Gaza, you name it. He's always on the right side of doing goodness. Matt Weinglass. Let's start with this, and as I said before, when we were talking in the green room, we'll call it. We got a lot of people on this channel who are, from all over the world. When I look at the analytics, Saudi Arabia, you name it, right? And there are a lot of people that are not familiar. They know there's a there's a fire in LA, but they don't know it. So let's do this. Let's start from scratch, from the people who know zero about this, and fill them in with where and bring them up to speed to where we are today. You've got much time as you need, Matt.
Thank you, Garland, and thanks for having me back on with you. I wish it was under better circumstances here in LA. Yeah, we've been experiencing greatest fire disaster we've had in the history of our state, and it's even at this point considered the 7th largest natural disaster in the history of ever. So we're in that top 10 right now. Yeah, as far as the amount of damage, the amount of acres that are affected. We have 8 multiple fires that have all broken out in the first 48 hours. And now we're into the next day 3, day 4. We're heading into day 4 right now. So this started earlier in this week on Tuesday. And if anyone turned on the news, you might have seen a little bleep about Malibu. It's called the Palisades. So that was the first one that broke out. That one is still going today. That is, it's said to be 7% contained, but it's the most damaging one right now because they can't do much with it and it continues to spread. So if you guys understand, there's the map of California, and I know this is probably the hardest part to fathom, is that we are literally on the coast. We have the Pacific Ocean right next to us, and for some reason, California cannot figure out how to solve the fire problem when we have the dryness and we have these fires that pop up, and they've popped up before. This isn't the first time, but for some reason, we have this massive problem. Like I said, 8 different fires breaking out in 48 hours. So it started on, it's called the Palisades Fire, and they start naming these ones. Also, I'll point out this, and if people that are here in LA, they've probably gotten the word on this already, but there is an app that we've been following, and this has been saving a lot of lives. It's been saving a lot of confusion and fear, and everybody that is kind of scrambling to know what's up to date and who do we trust. Like you can't really turn on CNN and get any accurate information. I mean, they're going for the one-shot headlines. We're looking at this app called Watch Duty. Watch Duty is where we will get the up-to-date information on how these fires are spreading right now. And so, yeah, as you got the map up there, you can see. So this map's not showing you the fires, but I'll show you. If you can see Santa Monica on the left there. So if you go over just a little, if you go left to the west, you see Malibu. That whole area right now is completely scorched right now. That entire area, it's called the Palisades, completely scorched. And it's moving west and north right now. So if you are in the valley is a little northeast of that. Everyone has been evacuated around this area. This is insane. I'm telling you, Garland, you not only have you had this fire burn down the entire PCH. So you have this entire, and this is a very, as you would say, a wealthy area of LA, and this entire area is gone. Like there's like half of the Highway 1 was PCH, which we know there's a lot of wealthy celebrities and a lot of high end Hollywood donor class. They live on that strip. It's half of it is gone, and that was Tuesday, Wednesday. And so as I'm saying, is you can see Okay, I guess you're going to the next. Yeah, the Palisades. Yeah, that whole area. It's either torched or it's been completely evacuated. And there's a lot of people that are stuck there. And so what's happening is they're setting up these places where people can go. And you know what, they're called evacuation centers, and they're for fire victims. And been a bunch set up. And I have to say, and we know this firsthand because some of our people, they've gone out there to help people from our show, in our vicinity of the homeless left, where we're doing the podcast. And we were able to. I got to tell you this, and I was fortunate enough to do a show on Thursday while the fires were going up. We had our Thursday show. We brought on Craig Pasta Jardula to help us cover these fires in real time, while we had people at the evacuation centers checking in with us and saying how can people help. So we're trying to be action oriented here. At the same time, there's a lot of people in fight or flight mode. So it's very jarring right now, Garland. I'm going to tell your viewers, for us to even continue to do this job and continue to bring you guys up-to-date information and ask the right questions, the questions that the CNN is not asking. Anderson Cooper's, getting flown in. He lands in the area so he can talk to our governor, Gavin Newsom, on this theater press thing. I'll talk about more of that later, but it's infuriating for us to see these little theater pieces being done while we're actually trying to cover this thing and trying to bring some truth to the table and have the real conversations and ask the real questions. But as of right now, according to the Watch Duty app, yes, this Palisades fire is still the worst one. I want to point out that if you're north of the valley, there's one called the Hearst fire. That one is still, we're looking at, okay, that one is being contained now, 76%. So that's good. That's good news. I want to point out there's a lot of our friends and colleagues out in Pasadena. This one is not looking good right now either. It's called the Eaton fire. And
okay, let me bring this up. Okay. Let me bring it up. Let's show the people where Pasadena is. Okay, from where we are here, where's Pasadena?
So if you go to the east there, so just scroll over
towards what? Towards Calabasas?
Los Angeles. Yeah, just go over Los Angeles. You see the Glendale sign up there. No, just so you go up a little bit.
This way,
and then to the right, you'll see the Glendale sign. Go right of that. You'll see Pasadena. Go a little bit further.
Oh, there's Glendale.
There we go. There's Pasadena.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yep. So everything that whole Pasadena area, there are hills right on the north side of that, and so that's what they're calling it the Eaton fire, and it's basically taking out everything north of the main strip. You have Colorado Boulevard, very famous. People go there. That's where Old Town is. It's that's where you got a lot of movie premieres, and it's a place people go. Tourists go there. It's a tourist attraction. Everything north of that is been completely evacuated or it's been torched. And when I say
does that include Burbank or Glendale or any of that?
So the areas of Glendale, there's definitely been some evacuation notices. It's hard to say if they've gone through yet because a lot of people are on they're on standby. So they've been sent the message. You better be packed. You better be ready to go. So it's unclear where some of those are still on those standby modes. But yeah, the Eaton fire is taking up that whole area above Pasadena. It's called so you see that Altadena. All of that is in trouble right now. All of that. So a lot of people have lost their homes. They've lost everything.
Area.
Yeah.
Very highly popular. Altadena. Okay.
Yes. So if you're living there right now, you're not in good shape. You're not in good shape. You've been evacuated. You might not have anything to come back to at this point.
Wow.
The other one I will point out, and this one hit us home because we're closer to Hollywood. Now that was called the Sunset Fire. It's still called the Sunset Fire. It has been contained, but it scorched the Hollywood Hills 2 nights ago. The day we were doing the live show from here, and we were watching a lot of our friends and colleagues here in Hollywood. Their house is just going up in flames. They're gone.
Is that near West Hollywood here?
Yeah. So actually, if you go just to the right of that, you'll see. Yeah. So there's Hollywood, the Hollywood Boulevard. You can actually, it's right where that sign. Yeah. So that's Sunset Boulevard. If you go up right above that, you'll see Hollywood Boulevard. So everything north of Hollywood Boulevard was evacuated 2 nights ago. And above Hollywood, there's a Sunset Plaza Drive. There's a Laurel Canyon Drive. If you go up, those are the windy roads that go up to where all the celebrities live. That's where you take those little windy roads up. Those are the multi-million-dollar mansions. A
There's a
lot of
road.
those, as
Yeah.
we're speaking right now, Garland, they're gone. Those
Wow.
houses are gone. They've been burnt to the ground. It's really, really tragic. Now, again, I said the Sunset Fires has been contained. So that one is, thank God it's not spreading anywhere else as of right now. But like I said, we are just south of there. So we're looking right up at that, thinking, oh my God, like this is happening in real time. And like people, friends, families, they're losing everything right now. It's very, very tragic, Garland. But again, we're following this all on Watch Duty app, and that's what we've been telling all of our people, everybody that we've been in touch with, to follow that in real time, and you'll be able to get up to the second information on what you can do as far as being prepared to get out when you need to get out.
Wow. So what about the response? We've heard a couple of things. People angry at Gavin Newsom, the LA mayor being in another country. What the heck's going on? There seems to be anger at the politicians. I've also heard that there's issues where the fire departments gets there. There's no water in the hydrants. What do we need to know? Newsom, people are angry at Newsom. They're angry at the mayor. Let's start with the mayor.
Okay, let's go with the mayor here. So Karen Bass, what we know is that she had cut off $17.6 million from the fire department funding. That happened. That's a fact. Now, did she do it on her own, or was she forced to do it? We don't know. But what we do know, that she had left the country, and there was plenty of signs. I want to be very clear. This didn't come out of nowhere. Maybe for the people, we had no idea this was going to happen, but they knew. There were all the signs pointing to that this was going to happen, and she should have been here, ready for this, ready to help. Be in problem-solving action mode. She wasn't. She was in Ghana, of all places. She comes back, and now there's this very famous. You guys can look this up on Twitter or Google, wherever you can find it. She goes mute. She's asked by a reporter. This is their first time stepping back into her city. The mayor of LA asked, "What do you have to say to the people of LA, the people you are mayor for? What do you have to say to them?" And she goes completely mute. Nothing. Mute. And her handlers walk her down a hallway, try to get her through a door. It's actually very disturbingly, awkwardly funny, but sad at the same time. They can't get the door open, so she's kind of stuck. And the reporter keeps asking her, "Don't you have anything to say?" And in a very nice way, don't you have anything you want to say to the people in LA? Nothing. Mute. Completely mute. The next day, they finally put her in front of a podium, and she speaks. And she's reading off a script, and she literally, Garland, you're not going to believe this, she literally pulls a Joe Biden, gets to a place where there was supposed to be a website to go to, and she's, rather than inserting the website, she says, "You can go to URL," and then she goes on to the next sentence. So this is somebody who's brainless, mindless, nothing to say. She's clearly a puppet of the establishment here in LA. And it's very sad. And we need more people to be furious about this. And you said this, you're hearing that people are angry, but a lot of people here in LA are just not knowing who to be mad at. And they're mad at a lot of different things, and they have a right to be mad, but we have to start focusing our anger at people in power in general. I don't care if you have a D next to your name or an R next to your name. If you're someone in power, we're going to be upset. We're going to be looking into what kind of corruption, what kind of sloppiness, or anything that you did to contribute to our situation right now. That's what we're going to do. And that's that's unfortunately, our mayor here has completely, at best, incompetently dropped the ball on us.
Well, again, here's what we got too. She's on, I forgot which one of these CIA regime change, the in National Endowment of Democracy, or one of these regime change groups. She's been on the board of that for years, and I felt like she's a puppet in so many ways. I mean, to me, the fact that she is in charge of Los Angeles and she's on one of these regime change, I think it's the National Endowment for Democracy, one of these regime change operations, shows me something. She's not the mayor of Los Angeles, as it were. She is an operative for the machine. Yeah. You know what I mean? And as an operative for the machine, she could give a crap about it. It seems obvious to me. She's in another state doing regime change operations. I mean, another country. That's what it seems like to me. She's working for the National Endowment of Democracy. She ain't working for Los Angeles. You guys don't have a mayor, in my opinion. And I think people are waking up to that reality.
I hope so. Unfortunately, there's still a lot of vote blue, no matter who's. As you know, they populate our state. There's a bunch of them that populate our state, and they're still trying to defend this. Democrats are the good guys, Republicans are the bad guys. Anybody that has anything, to challenge our leadership on, you must be a Trumper. It's this very one dimensional logic, and and I'm seeing it's all over social media right now. And I get it. People they're scrambling. I mentioned fight or flight. That's very that's we have to give people that leadway. Their emotions are running high, but yet they're still defending this. I hope you're right, Garland. I do hope there's people. This could be that moment they wake up. This could be the first time. This could be that silver lining here. The first time that you start asking a question. What's wrong with our leadership? What's wrong with our power? Why does it look like the people we elect with that color blue? Why does it look like that they are puppets to something bigger and they're not actually working on our behalf? They're not actually working for the people that voted them in, that gave them money. I mean, maybe this is the moment. I hope so.
Well, another thing too, and it's interesting because prior to this recent election, a guy who's close to I live outside of Baltimore, but I have a lot of relatives that are in Baltimore. My mother, lived in Baltimore when she was a kid, and I still have a number of relatives in Baltimore. So I have spent a lot of time in and around Baltimore in my life. And one of the things that I started hearing prior to this recent election is we've been voting for Democrats our whole life. And the city ain't getting no better. It's just getting worse. And they're starting to say, and we have a black mayor and a black city council and all this kinds of stuff, and they're not doing any better. People are starting to question the way the system operates. And this is what I'm sure this is the thing with the Karen Bass. Ooh, they've got a black female, you know what I mean? A diversity. We've got a black female. And it seems to me the system has learned how to use that, not as a positive thing that, hey, great, we're moving forward, but as a weapon against the people to put somebody in there who's a puppet. And if it was some old gray-haired white guy, people might be a little more suspicious, but it's a diverse black female, whatever. When you look at her history, apparently she's not on the NED anymore, but she was doing the regime change stuff. It seems to me it's the game now that the guy that they put in charge of AFRICOM, which is the Africa Command, which is used to oppress the black people in Africa. They put a guy named Michael Langley. He's a black guy. The woman in charge of Southcom, which is the South American Military Command, right, which is there to oppress the people in South America and steal their resources, is a woman. Seems to be the game, and I'm hoping, I think, to be quite frank, I think Hollywood's going to be the last place to get it, but we got hope that people will start to realize it ain't about that. And not only is not about that, they're using a Karen Bass so that you'll smile and say the first diverse black female, and you won't ask the questions that needed to be asked that got you here. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, this is weaponizing the diversity issue against the people that care. So you're using it's a trick they've gotten so good at. We figured it out back at Obama. We figured that out, the hope and change, and a guy that looks like you. Now you can continue all the bombing and the occupying and the regime change wars and all this stuff that you were doing anyways. Now you can just do it with someone that looks more like you, and that'll make you sleep well at night. And so we're tired of this, and like we're hoping, we're positive that people, maybe they didn't see it back then, they didn't see it in 2008, they didn't see it they didn't see it with Hillary Clinton. Was, if you don't vote for Hillary, you're a sexist, and they didn't even see it with Kamala. Maybe they're seeing it now. I don't know. I hope so. I hope that, because you're talking about the LAFD, the fire department. You're talking about people that are supposed to be saving your lives. This isn't a joke. This isn't about who I'm a taxpayer in California. I pay my taxes. I expect, if an emergency happens, that someone's going to show up. And the person that's leading that charge, the leader of this charge, is going to be the best for the job, and they're going to be here to put the fire out. And I'm not sitting here thinking I want to save my family, but the first thing that's important to me is what color skin the person that shows up is.
Right.
And so people understand that's, you can say diversity is important. That's fine. But you have to say the first number one thing is people's safety, and that we got your back, and we're going to do everything we can to present the best we can so we can protect you and make sure you and your family are safe. That's got to be number one. I hope people are seeing it now.
Another thing that's interesting, and that is the establishment machine always talks about the police. And of course, I was in law enforcement, right? They talk about the police. We got to have more money in the police and for the police, blah, blah, blah. Now, in my opinion, that's a lot of that is about oppression. You know, a lot of that, we got to give more money to the police is about the people are so pissed they're going to rise up, and we got to have the police to stop the people from pushing back against the establishment. Not saying we don't need law enforcement, but I kind of feel like the machine sees the police as somebody to protect them from, you know, the unwashed, the hoi polloi out there, which would be the rest of us, right? Here's my point. I was in law enforcement, and when we would have an emergency or something happen, I always said, man, I can't wait till the firemen get here. Why? Because I was the guy that would be in charge of the scene, right? The firemen would come. There's a lot of them. They work hard, they do stuff, and they charge right in. And we'd be like, they would get there and they'd say, what do we have? And I said, we got a possible drowning right over in this creek. We got a missing person. All right, they're getting rubber boats out. They got divers. They got dragging equipment. They are all over it. The cops will secure the scene or maybe chase a bad guy or whatever, right? On a day-to-day basis. I'm in law enforcement. Man, the fire department are the ones that really get out there, risk their lives. Being a fireman is far more dangerous than being a police officer. Look, what do you see? You turn on the news and here's what you see. There was a 10 alarm fire in so-and-so Elm Street. 4 houses burnt. 5 firemen went to the hospital. There's always some firemen that went to the hospital. It's an extremely dangerous job. So how much did you say she cut from the fire department?
Yeah, 17.6 million cut.
That's a lot of money.
Fire. And you know, the good news is we've heard in the last 24 hours that the fire chief, Kristen Crowley, has called it out. She's saying on camera, she's saying they failed us. She's calling out Karen Bass. This is incredible. This is happening. They're kind of turning on each other right now, which is good. We want to see that anger coming from the fire chief. Now, of course, she's also guilty of talking about Kristen Crowley, also guilty of talking about DEI hires and like we care about diversity. But she's saying, look, you guys had a responsibility to have this water on. What's going on with the water? Garland, can we talk about the water being shut off?
Yeah, let's do that. Go, man. Look, the more the merrier. Let's go.
This is insane. So we talked about the Palisades fire that's happening right now. It's scorching people. It's unbelievably imaginably horrible right now. All the people that are losing their everything right now. The Palisades and this is the closest to the Pacific Ocean. There is a reservoir that's sitting there that has no water in it. And that's seemingly on purpose because everything is going towards the zoning has been there. It's been ready to fill. It's 10 years ago, California actually passed Prop 1, which funded these new reservoirs. And so we're 10 years later and they can't even start construction. The funding is there. Everything's in place. Why is this thing sitting there completely bone dry? It's been that way for 10 years. It doesn't make any sense. Also of note, last year, we had an excess amount of rain. It was the most rain we've had in this state. So we were the furthest away from a drought. I know people out there, you've probably heard of California. California has had drought problems in the past, for sure. We've had drought problems here for many, many years. My whole lifetime, we've had drought problems. But isn't it interesting that a year ago, we were the furthest away from a drought in ever, and now this happens now. So to deliberately or sloppily, I'll say this, sloppily at best, you failed us. You did not fill that reservoir. That water was supposed to be used to put out these fires, and you can't do that. And then you shut off the water on top of it. This thing is insanely horrible when you look at this. We did a little dive into this, Garland. So not only did they shut off the water, these firemen could not get water to the houses. They had to start scooping up water with cones. We have footage of them scooping it up from orange cones and trying to put out fires. It's tragic. On top of that, we find out that fire insurance policies have been canceled in the last several months. All over the place. State Farm, all of these companies are just randomly canceling people's fire insurance out of nowhere. People that have been paying their dues their entire lives, homes they've owned for 50 years or more. All of a sudden, they pulled out. So that means that the insurance companies knew, or they were suspicious that this might be a time that we need to bail because we're going to lose a bunch of money soon. And so that's all. We have to speculate why or when or how they knew. But the point is, this was coming, and nobody was actually actively trying to stop this from happening. And so there's all signs are pointing towards corruption. And like I said, best case scenario, total incompetence.
Wow. And you know what's interesting? Everywhere I look, well, I finally found it. But let me show you something because I was about to make this point. They cut money. They've cut all of this money for for the fire department, right?
Yeah.
What do we get? Biden announces nearly
Wow.
2.5 billion more in aid for Ukraine, right? Well, here's what's interesting. When you go online and you start searching for Biden, the news for Biden more money, he just sent 500 million more to Ukraine, right?
Yep.
They're there. When you click on the stories, they're gone now. Oh, they've killed the link. Let me see if I can show you.
Wow.
They know good and well that they're in trouble. Let me find it. Well, I'll let you keep
Yeah.
going. But I
Yeah, as
just,
far
I
as
just,
yeah.
I just did it a second ago because what the first thing I thought was, Biden. People are going to be pissed. They're going to say, "Look at this! Biden sending all this money to Ukraine and blah blah blah." And I thought, okay, here we go. Now watch this. Here we go. Watch this. Let me see. Watch this. I'm going to show you. Just they know what the hell's going on. Watch this. I'll find it for you. It is important. Okay. Look at this. Let's look at this. So I go search here and I find this. Doggone it. I'm sorry. I
No.
keep having trouble here. It's gone.
I mean, you're saying that these stories are disappearing from.
There was an article just now that said Biden is spending 500 million for Ukraine,
Yeah.
even as LA fires go on, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, here we go. You
There
see
it is.
that? Even as Ukraine burns,
There it
Biden
is.
set to unveil last 500 million for Ukraine, right? Okay,
Yep.
that's the story. It's there. Well, let's click on it, because that'll certainly piss people off, right? Not that Google or DuckDuckGo would certainly censor anything. So there's the story we want to see. Even as LA burns, Biden set to unveil. Oh boy, that really pisses you off, doesn't it? Why don't we click on that and see what we get?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, doggone it. Elon Musk ex-partner ground forced to evacuate loss. What do you know? You
Wow.
click on it, even as, and okay, I can't even get back to it. Now I go back to it, it's gone.
Wow.
I tried to click back to it, it's gone. The whole thing's gone.
I mean,
So the article that says even as LA burns, Biden sends another 500 million, you click on it. The link is dead. It takes you to something about Elon Musk. And then when you try to go backwards and find it, it's gone. It's obviously they're manipulating which is a perfect example. They're manipulating the news because they know they're wrong. And they know that people like us in the alternative news, that the first question we're going to raise is the question of war. Yep. We're going to say, why the hell are you sending billions of dollars of weapons for a genocide and mass murder in Gaza? Yeah. You're sending millions and hundreds and millions and billions of dollars to the door of Russia for some war that the American people do not want. We're afraid of getting nuked. But yet, when it comes to LA, the people are running for their lives because the firemen have been fired.
It's, and we've seen this before with Lahaina, North Carolina, the people waiting to get help. And you see just more and more money going to the war machine, more and more money going to Ukraine, more and more money going to Israel. It's absolutely insane. It's infuriating. And we can see it. Like you said, they can take articles offline, but we know that that's happening. You have, this is so surreal. You got Kamala Harris saying, sending her regards to California and using language. It's so bizarre, Garland. She's using language that if you didn't know any better, if you didn't know California was on fire, that was burning to the ground, you would think she was talking about Gaza. She's talking about displaced families, innocent children, a tragedy beyond tragedy. We have to stop talking about this these fires and start talking more about these horrific disasters, catastrophic event that we have to stop now. We got to help people. And we're like, you sound like you're someone who cares about people. Oh, that's right. You're funding it, the genocide that's doing this exact thing with our money. We know that California itself, that our taxpayer money from California, 50 million has gone to Israel. We know that. And so what are we paying for? To have our fire hydrants not work? But as long as you guys can shoot the crap out of, bomb the crap out of Gaza, that's nice. That's nice. You teach Hamas a lesson, right? But meanwhile, when we need help, it's beyond tragic. It's disgusting, and the language coming out of her mouth. I wonder if she knows that the way you're talking, you sound like you're somebody who cares. And of course, we know she doesn't actually care about us in California either. She has to say it. She's from here. She's actually looking to come in. Some are talking about her coming in and taking over from Gavin Newsom in 2026. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, she might. I don't know, but we'll see about that. But I would like to talk about Gavin Newsom right now.
Yeah, that's where I wanted to go next. Now that we've, I mean, there ain't a lot to say about Karen Bass. Let's face it, she's not there. She's in another country or whatever. She's has she come back yet? Is she back yet?
No, Karen Bass is here.
She's here because she was out of the country, right? Wasn't she in Ghana?
Yes, she was in Ghana. She comes back, and we talked about how she went mute. Then she's reading off a script. She is a puppet. You nailed that earlier, Garland. She is a puppet because she's waiting to be told what to do. She can't act for herself. She can't say something simple to the people that she's supposed to be a mayor of. She cannot say, we're here, we're doing everything we can. She can't even do that. So I think that's the pulling back the curtain moment that you were kind of suggesting that obviously you're a puppet. You're not allowed to talk until your handlers tell you it's time to talk. So clearly that's what was happening there. Now with Gavin Newsom, that's a different story. He's got that little suave, like little Hollywood look to him.
The Pierre Trudeau hair.
Yeah, right. So he's a little bit more theatrical where they can stage something for him. And so I mentioned, Anderson Cooper earlier. He comes in, he flies in right into the Palisades. They go to a safe area, obviously, but it's not too safe. It's just safe enough for them. But they wanted to make sure that they staged it in front of a burning house right behind him. So you got Gavin Newsom standing there with a burning house behind him, and he's looking all slick, and Anderson Cooper is asking him not hard questions, right? Just trying to make him look like the hero who's here trying to help. And then he goes like this. He goes, I don't want to have to ask you this, Gavin. I really don't want to ask you, but I have to. And we're like, you and me and other indie journalists, we're like, is this going to be a good question? No, it's a question about Trump. He says, how do you feel about Trump bullying? Like he's being kind of a bully, and that must really irritate you. And Gavin's like, oh, I'm not going to respond to that guy. No, and as we know, Trump had actually tweeted out, Gavin Newsom is responsible for this, and so I'm not going to listen to that. He's the governor, right, of the state. He's standing in there. And so instead he pushes back and goes, I'm not even going to give him the time of day. I'm here with Joe Biden. I'm here with the people. Joe Biden, he's a guy that has every single Californian's back, because I was just standing with him. So we went and looked to see what was going on with Biden. So Biden flew in. He stands in this little op moment with Gavin Newsom next to him. He can barely finish a sentence. They get him off Air Force One. He says something about how he just got news that he's a great grandfather. That's his message to California. Joe Biden says, I'm a new great grandfather, and Newsom's standing there, everyone's cheering, and that was it. And then they said no questions, and he gets back on Air Force One, he flies back to DC. So that's the person who's supposed to care about us. And again, I'm not sitting here saying Trump's such a great guy or whatever, but the point is, he's throwing criticism your way, and you got nothing to say about it. And instead of Anderson Cooper actually asking Gavin Newsom some real questions, like what happened to that $26 billion that was supposed to go to homelessness? That's gone. We've been covering that, Garland. We've been talking about that before New Year's. Hey, Gavin, why did you declare a state of emergency for Californians a few weeks ago for bird flu? He did that. People don't know that. So this was before the fires. Hey, Gavin, why did you just buy a $9 million house off of a $200,000 salary? So there's a lot of questions that you could be asking the guy, but instead you're doing theater pieces, and somebody's house behind you is burning down to the ground. I would be furious if that was my house while they're making this theater moment, which is not journalism at all. It's infuriating, Garland. But I just wanted your viewers to hear that that's the sequence of events we've been seeing over the last 48 to 72 hours.
You know that, and you look at California. I mean, the last time I went, I'm like, man, like everywhere I went, there was homeless people. I'm sure there's a rich area, so probably not as much there. When you get into the poor areas, the homeless people will be running for their lives because they're everywhere. The last time I went to I used to love to go to California. I'd stay out in the desert, and drive into LA and go up to, Frisco and go to Mount Tamalpais and go down to see where Alan Watts used to keep his boat right there at the pier. All the fun stuff I do in California, right? Where back in the day, we used to go to Mexico and Tijuana when it was safe. But, and I loved it. And now I go back to California. I don't know it. I go back. I'm like, my God, there's just homeless tents everywhere. I feel like I'm in what the African countries used to look like when you go there and you'd see all of these shanty towns. You go to a city and there's literally shanty towns. So I look at that and I'm like, they gave you 26 billion for homeless. Did they give you money to make it worse? Did they say, here's 26 billion? We don't have enough homeless people. Clearly we need more homeless people.
The money's gone. It's like we had a deep dive. Somebody went in to figure out he has these Cayman Island accounts set up, just like money laundering scheme going on. Yeah, it's gone. Like it wasn't even spent, Garland. It's like it's missing. And you would think that a journalist, a quote unquote journalist, who has a chance to confront Gavin Newsom as his state is burning to the ground. What happened to that money? I mean, just a thought. Do you have anything to say about that? No, we have to protect him. We have to protect our leaders because Trump's about to come into office, and that's Hitler that's about to get inaugurated in a week from now. So that's when the world's going to end. But if you're sitting in California and you're still watching CNNs, you're still watching MSNBC while your house is literally burning to the ground, and you still believe that the world is going to end in a week and a half, and that you, without even noticing that the governor of your state failed you, the blue state of California has failed you, your house no longer exists, and yet you're still worried about Hitler getting inaugurated in a week and a half. That's the moment that your life is going to be ruined? Really? Well, that's total capture. We know that that's capture, and we feel bad for people that still think that way.
And if I'm the mayor, if I'm the governor, here's what I'm saying. I'm in charge of the insurance commission. The state insurance commission. Yeah. Every state has, most people don't know this, every state has a state insurance commission. If you have an issue with one of your insurance companies, you can file a complaint to the state insurance commission. There's a lot of information you can get from the state insurance commission. I'm sure they're all sold out now to the insurance companies. You know how they do now. They take somebody from an insurance company, a lobbyist, and they put them in charge of the insurance commission. But here's my point. If I'm the governor, if you're the governor, I'd say to this. I'm going to the state insurance commission. I want the director in my office in 1 hour, and I want to find out why the hell all of these people got their fire insurance canceled. I want an investigation immediately, and I want to know why they've been canceling fire insurance, what the reason is for it. I want to know everything, full investigation. And I have a feeling because these politicians now are owned by these big companies that we ain't going to hear or see an investigation into the insurance companies in California.
And Garland, we're not even allowed to ask these questions right now. They tell us it's too soon. It's too soon. Wait, people are suffering right now. They're suffering right now. You've heard this line before. Now's not the time.
Oh,
This is the language. This is the brainwashing of the corporate the corporatism that we're living in. They tell us that we're being insensitive because people are losing everything. They told us we were being insensitive on the homeless left when we covered Lahaina a year and a half ago. We had people out there. We went there. We wanted to ask questions and see what's going on. People told us here in California, they said, you're not allowed to do that. Those people are suffering. Well, fast forward a year and a half, you guys, we're suffering now. Are we not allowed to ask questions about our own suffering? Are we not allowed to ask questions about our own people right now, friends and colleagues and family right now that have lost everything? They've been evacuated. People are still being evacuated last night. Then they're never going to come back to their homes. This is beyond tragic, but that we're not allowed to do our job. We're not allowed to say what is happening, who is responsible for this. I want to get to the bottom of this. Or are we being insensitive for asking those questions? Anderson Cooper's not asking those questions. He's not asking those questions. None of the people getting paid by the military industrial complex, by Big Pharma, they're not asking these questions. We have to. I just wish, Garland, I just wish that at least right now, at least for this one, can you please give us a free pass for our own tragedy? Can you at least not tell me now's not the time when my whole city is burning down to the ground right now as we're talking? Give me a free pass just for this one to ask some questions. What the hell is going on? We want to know.
Well, here's the other thing too, and you think about it. You had Lahaina, right? You had this fire, and all of these people, were left homeless. Many were killed. Terrible things, and the government just ignored them. And what happened? Because Biden's in or whatever, and it looked bad, and it's a blue state. They wouldn't touch it on CNN or MSNBC. Okay, then you have this horrible disaster in Tennessee and North Carolina where all these towns washed away, unthinkable. And meanwhile, Biden's like, we got to get another $40 billion for Ukraine and another $10 billion for you, blah, blah, blah. And they offered the people $750.
Yeah.
And they had to go online and apply, which is kind of hard when you're living in a tent. You have no electricity, and the entire infrastructure in your region is wiped out. So and in the end, you get $750, which is no doubt taxable.
So that's interesting. So you bring up the 750, and we know it was like 700 to Lahaina, 750, I think North Carolina. So the people are like, well, what's it going to be this time for California? And so the word is, we saw Biden. He says, oh, I've talked with Gavin Newsom. We came up with a plan. We're going to cover everything. And by we, he means us, right?
Yeah, right.
We're going to cover everything for California. He said this for 180 days. It's not very clear what that means as far, what do you mean? What does everything mean? What do you mean you're going to cover? You're going to pay for, what are you going to pay for? But the fact that he's saying that, and he's not limiting, at least at this point, he's not limiting it to a number like a random number like 700 per household or 750 per household or 8 or whatever you come up with. He's saying 180 days. So I've heard some people close to us say, well, that's good, right? Biden is trying to do the right thing, and he's trying to really help Californians. And then I say to this, I go, look, I kind of almost feel bad for the old guy, because he's in a position where, are you going to help Californians more than North Carolina, more than Lahaina? Because why would you do that? Is it because maybe your donor class is here? Is it because the Democratic Party donors live here? That could be it. So we're talking about the value of people in different parts of the world. So we're starting to understand there's a structure in place for values of human beings' lives. We have donor class up here, we know, right? So Californians, we might get more than $700 this time, Garland. And then down here you got North Carolina, then Lahaina, and guess what? We know what's at the very bottom. If you're in Palestine, if you're in Gaza, very, very bottom.
No, if you're in Palestine or Gaza, you get billions in bombs dropped on you.
Yes.
You get billions of dollars in bombs dropped on you. Let's not forget, there was what did we see? Was it 2 years ago, a year and a half to 2 years ago? East Palestine. Remember that?
Yeah,
the train turns over, blows up, unthinkable, horrific poisons. All those people are going to end up with cancer and all kind of terrible things in the river. I watched a video where this guy was like miles away in some creek, and he's like, watch this, and he's sticking sticks in the creek, and all of this stuff is bubbling up of various colors. The methyl horrible. He's like, oh, this is terrible. I got to get out of here. He walks in, and there's like dead wildlife. Look at that, a dead deer, a dead coyote, whatever the hell, right? And I'm like, and Biden at the time, if you remember, he didn't go there for 3 weeks. Where did he go? He went to Kyiv. And people started saying, well, we need to say we're in Ukraine. What you're seeing is something consistent, whether it's the president and the politicians in DC. The hell with our people here. We got to run around the world and spend money on death and mayhem and murder. Bass, Newsom. These politicians we have now, let's be honest, don't give a shit about their so-called constituents.
No. No, and some of them say it out loud. They let you know, we care about Ukrainians more than Americans. That's to down here, right? That's who we care about. Wait, how many Ukrainians voted for you? How so yeah, they don't work for their constituents. We know this. We hope more people are waking up to this. I know that there's this other element of what happens next, and this is like we had this in Lahaina, so we're going to see the same pattern of questions that need to be asked. Like, so what does the rebuild process look like when this is over? What is all these things? What's going to happen? What
They're going
is
to blame
Gavin?
Trump. Trump will be in office then, and they can just go, Trump, look what Trump's done. He started the fire. He's been Trump. Their
He started
plan is
he
for a
started the fire with
narrative.
that tweet where he called Gavin Newsom Newsome. He started it with that tweet, Garland. We know that was very offensive. It made us upset.
No, you know what the one it was? It was the one where where Trump put up where Jeffrey Sachs called Netanyahu a deep, dark son of a bitch. That's the bad. That was the one that started the whole. Now, let me ask you this: do we have any idea how the fire started, where it came from, how soon they knew it was going to be bad? What did the beginning of this tragedy look like, and when did people first realize, hey, something's really bad going on here?
Okay, so now we're getting into the very difficult part of the conversation. We have to be very careful with making any assumptions or speculations.
Right. Yeah, because we'll be thrown off YouTube. But what you know how to walk that tight line. So that's why I'm glad I had
we will
you
walk
there.
that line together here. So let's try this. Okay. So when you create a condition of your state where we talked about the reservoir being empty. I mentioned that there is a possibility that was on purpose, not just sloppiness. When you create a condition where you drain the funding of where you're going to get your water from, where you're going to get your the funding for the fire department. When you've made we didn't talk about even this one. I mean, you can go back to the firing that happened when they let a lot of firefighters go because they went. I mean, you want to play with the YouTube algorithm right now? How about people that refused to get their
You know what? Yeah, they refused.
you know what?
What do we need firemen about?
Yeah.
Because they refused to do the you know what, and they
because
fired
I don't want a
firemen.
fireman showing up that could put me in danger if they breathed on me. So I'd rather my house burn down.
Understanding they did that for our own safety.
Yeah.
For our safety, to make us safer, they fired firemen. Boy, that feels really, for some reason, I don't think the people in Palisades right now feel safer because they fired a bunch of firemen because they refused to do things that they were ordered to do.
So, Garner, I'm gonna be careful here, but let's talk about some of the weird anomalies that we've seen here in California. There's been a lot of weird stuff going on here leading up to the fire. We're talking about I don't know if I can say the word, but there's what they would tell us condensation trails, right? They would say that's normal. And so you got a lot of this like playing around in the sky going on. And so we have people that have been looking into that for a long time because we've been doing our show for a year and a half here. So we've always been skeptical about things that look off. And so we look up in the sky, we say, well, what's going on? What is all this little dancing around of all these planes with all this? We're seeing white streaks in the sky constantly, messing around with stuff. So there's a lot of messing around going on, like almost like let's use the people as kind of an experiment to like kind of play around with stuff. Play around with things that we're able to do, mess with weather. Who knows? I don't know. I'm not saying this is what's happening. I'm saying we noticed this. The other thing we noticed is that we weren't allowed to talk about those things way before the fire. We were trying to talk about these things. People say, oh, conspiracy theories, this, that, and the other. And we're like, well, what do you guys do? What are you guys doing overhead? What is happening? So you put all these things together. The insurance is being canceled. So somebody knew, right? The insurance.
Yeah, that's weird, isn't it? How long?
Yeah.
That's the one that I keep thinking they started canceling fire insurance just before. How soon? How long ago was this thing when they canceled all of these fire insurance?
So we started seeing this. The State Farm started canceling people. It was about, I think that the drop in customers started about 5 or 6 months ago, and then it really took off after that. So you probably, if you have a house that's gone right now, you probably are somebody that was susceptible to losing your fire insurance in that time frame. So it was about 5 or 6 months ago to about 2 months ago. So there was this little period of time where they just got rid of people. They said, we're done. We're not going to cover you anymore. And so what did they know? What kind of numbers were they looking at? Were they able to predict this somehow? Did they get a phone call directly about it?
Pure coincidence, no doubt.
Yeah.
Coincidence that they coincidentally just happened to start canceling fire insurance just before a fire. Who would have died? Things like that happen in the universe. Pure coincidence, no doubt.
So I'm gonna bring up a thing about
so let me say this. So what that means is we have people who are paying for a home. Their home is burned down, and they still owe the bank. And there's no way to and they're paying the bank for a charred lot of ashes worth millions. In a lot of these instances, most of them probably Palisades, in a lot of these areas, millions. You got a multi-million-dollar house. Let's face it, in that region, it ain't got to be that big to be worth $1 million or $2 million, right? I'll probably get $1 million for my, plain old, a 3-bedroom rancher. I'd probably get $1 million for that if it was out there, But my point being is you literally now have a situation where you have many, many thousands of people who are paying. And I mean, I want the people in the chat to think about this. The situation you're in. If you are paying a monthly mortgage for a house and the only thing left on that lot is a pile of ashes and there's no way for you to recoup. So if you stop paying for the house, your everything's destroyed as far as your economic situation, your credit is destroyed, so you can't buy another house even though you can afford it. So you must continue to pay for a house, but you need a place to stay because yours is gone and nobody's ever going to pay for it. What an unthinkable position to put a significant percentage of the people in the Los Angeles area in.
Well, so just for a timeline, and we can reference Lahaina for this. The next thing to happen after that, after you put people in a desperate situation where they can't, there's no insurance to cover their loss, they're out on the street. They still own the property, but they can't do anything with it. So what happens next? The phone rings. It's time for the bank to buy it off your back. We're going to take this off you. So this is where BlackRock comes into play. This is the game plan. You can buy people's property for 10% of the value and get away with it because that will take that burden off what you just described, that homeowner that got screwed. They have no options.
The bank will let them.
Yeah, they'll say 10% value. We'll write you a check right now. You can walk away and you're good. And
now, but let me ask you this: under that scenario, let's say I got it like my house. I've been here for a lot of years, and I have a certain amount of equity built into it. And when I want to sell and move on or whatever, I take that equity. Well, in this instance, you lose the equity, don't you?
You do, yeah. But that's when they're saying we're going to give you a deal. You can't. We're going to make you an offer you can't refuse, right?
You can't refuse it, literally.
Well, you could. And so I'm bringing up Lahaina because there's something really noble about. So we spent time there, and this is important because we look at this as the blueprint. So they tried to do this to Lahaina. A lot of the locals, a lot of the natives in Maui and Lahaina said no, we're not. We have so much pride, so much history. We're not going to do this, and they'd rather be homeless than give up their property to corporate America and to the banks. And so some of them gave in, of course. I mean, you can't fault them for that.
No,
I'm saying they put up a struggle in Lahaina. They're still putting up that struggle. They're still fighting out there. Here in LA, here in California, Southern California, I'm not going to give the people there that much credit. Their property value is way more. So when you're offered a 10% of that value, it's a massive check, And they don't have that history here. You guys, I understand people that don't know about LA. LA is not about locals. LA is about people who came here. And so we don't have the history here, the family, the heart, the tradition. There's no tradition here. It's all theater. This literally is the theater capital of the New York theater. Yeah. No, but you know what I mean? It's the acting capital. It's like we perform for people. Everything, nothing is real here. So when you're offered a check, mark my words, Gon, that you're going to see in the next several months here, you're going to see the biggest upward transfer of wealth we've seen since the CARES Act, for sure. But definitely in this state, you've never seen anything like it's going to happen. People are going to take the money, and the banks are going to own everything, and it's BlackRock coming right in here, and that's what's happening.
Then they rebuild all the houses.
Yeah.
And nobody buys them.
Yeah.
Now BlackRock, everything is rented.
Yes. And this is also of note. Gavin Newsom, we talked about all his shady stuff that he would never get asked on CNN. But what we know is that Gavin Newsom is working with developers right now. He's been doing it for several months, changing the zoning in these burn areas. He's allowing for more mass buildings of apartments. He's taking away single family zonings, which was, I think it's called R1, and he's changing it to R3, which is apartments. So even if you were able to build back, you couldn't even build back single family home. You have to go for the big multi-condo complex, the stuff the banks like, right? The stuff that we can have these big malls and all this
apartments
stuff
that you can rent out. Apartments are not to be bought; they're to be rent. So
That's
you
correct.
take out land that people can purchase and build equity in, and then you replace it with rental properties that BlackRock and Citigroup and Goldman Sachs comes in and they own, and then they rent them all out.
Yeah. And then we own nothing and we're happy, I think, is the old adage from WEF. And so there you go. And it's gonna be just in time for the what's coming to LA in 2028. The Olympics are coming here. Let's look at that timeline.
Got to clear some area. Got to clear some area out to build that Olympic village, don't they?
Clear it out, and it's going to be a cash grab. It's going to be awful. And again, we're not sitting here saying exactly what we don't know how, but we do know that in this moment there's definitely an opportunity for this to happen. And I will certainly say that all you have to do is follow the Lahaina blueprint, and you're going to see this happen. So again, people out there can be skeptical and say this was accidental or it was because of sloppy or negligence. Okay, still, even if it's just negligence, you know for a fact that the banks, BlackRock, all these they're going to seize this moment, and they're going to get what they can, because that's the capitalist system we live in, where it's profit over people every time. And they can't kick us off of YouTube for saying that. That's just the way. That's in our bylaws. Like that's it. That's our system. Profit over people. So there you go. So yeah, and then we can debate all day about how or why, whatever the hows.
Well, let me give you an example.
Yeah.
Okay. You have one country where people are upset about something and there's protest. And what happens? The intelligence people come in and they try to usurp the protests, turn them over, and do it for a regime change, a protest that started organically. You got the next country where the U.S. sends in all of these CIA, NGO operatives that come up with fake protests and they try to overthrow the government. Okay. Some of them were were organic protests about something that people were pissed off, and some of them were fake protests that we created. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
They're going to try to use the protest to overthrow the government, right? Mm-hmm. Same with the fire. Could somebody have been smoking and threw a cigarette out? It's possible. Could there have been some devious, unthinkable acts by the government? All of those things are possible. But whatever the reason is, these vultures are going to come in. That's valuable property. Guess what? Gaza's valuable property.
Yeah.
After they finish flattening it, they've already started talking about how they're going to rebuild it, and they ain't going to let the Palestinians come back. They're going to rebuild it. And guess what? BlackRock, whoever, will come into Gaza. You know what? Out of the kindness of our hearts, we're going to rebuild this area. And when they rebuild it, the poor people who've been genocided ain't going to get an opportunity. It's the same game. Even in a war, they come in, they bomb. BlackRock has bought up half of Ukraine.
Yeah.
So whatever sliver of Ukraine is left when this is said and done, they don't give a crap. They're going to be like, okay, the Russians got this amount, this happened to this amount. The Hungarians, maybe you want to snatch the mountainous regions. Poland, there's some areas. You take that. You know how the game is. They don't give a crap. And then BlackRock's going to come in and Goldman Sachs and Citigroup and say, oh, by the way, we bought these huge areas where there's wheat fields or whatever. The war's over. Blow it up. Then come in and make a fortune off of it. And it looks like the LA area will be subject to the same fate.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're going to get, people are going to still stay in line and say, okay, I guess this was inevitable, or they're still trying to figure out why this happened. We can talk forever on that, but there's one thing we missed, and that was climate change. So this part is important because there's a lot of the idea that for me personally, I would say 8 fires starting up all at the same time in 48 hours at the same time. To me, that doesn't sound like climate change. To me, that sounds like something more, something else is going on. It could be a little climate change. I don't know. But for people that have been, talking about, hey, we need fewer plastic straws, otherwise Lahaina is going to go on fire, or we're going to, so it's the plastic straws that did this. For people that have been in that camp for their whole lives, maybe now they're like, wait a minute, 8 fires at the same time all over LA? That's weird. That doesn't make sense. So they're asking that question for the first time. Wait,
like what are the odds
else?
of that? It's like the odds of like somebody getting bit by a rattlesnake, a cobra, and and a taipan, whatever that snake is, all in the same day at the same exact time.
Yeah.
Could it happen? In theory, in this universe, it could happen. In practical application, the odds of it are infinitesimally small. And the same with this. Could eight people be wandering around in different areas of LA at exactly the same time, lighting up a joint, and at the same time just go, I'm sick of this lighter. I'll just leave it and I'll throw it over here in this brush pile. What could possibly happen? In theory, that could happen.
Yeah.
In practical application, YouTube fact checkers, all we're saying is the probabilities of that happening are pretty small.
They're pretty small.
All we're saying, not that high, not that great.
But if CNN puts up one clip of somebody with a little tiny, blowtorch, or they're actually arresting a few people that had the lighters. They had, even somebody had thrown a gasoline, little carton of gasoline off the freeway. So that footage is circling around, and it is enough. It's enough to get people to stop asking questions. So that person that was like, for the first time in their life, was suspicious when they saw the 8 fires all come up. They see it. They turn on CNN and they see that clip of the one guy getting arrested for the cigarette. Now they're back in line, Garland. Now they're getting that. Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. I thought it was something more. No, it's that person's fault. Now I get it. Back to the assembly line. Sorry for asking questions. So that's
you know what it is? It's 8 Ukrainians on a sailboat.
Yeah,
that's what it is. Effectively, that's the game plan every single time. It's always 8 Ukrainians on a sailboat. Well, let me see. Wouldn't they have to have like a diving bell and a thing to, one of these things to depressurize and all of that? How the hell are they going to fit that on the back of a sailboat? Yeah. That's not important now. It was 8 Ukrainians in a sailboat who did something that most countries aren't able to do. Yeah. So it's always 8 Ukrainians it's always some absurd, preposterous thing that if you're really stupid and you really want to believe everything that they tell you, you'll suck it in. But the rest of us will look at it and go, you got to be shitting me. 8 Ukrainians in a sailboat, 8 fires starting at the same time simultaneously in Los Angeles in the middle of the winter. What up the hell? It ain't even fire season.
Hey, 19 hijackers with box cutters. I don't want to go down that one.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to go down that one.
Look, wait a minute. They're going to, you know what they're probably going to find? Like when they go to the scene of one of the fires, they're going to find Trump's passport laying where there was like a 1,000,000-degree fire all the way around, and the only thing that survived was Trump's passport. Hey, they'll find it laying there. Oh, there you go. Well, Trump was involved in this one. Here's his passport.
Those passports, those are unbelievably how they make those. This is advanced stuff. They should start building our houses with that material they build the passports with in our houses.
I mean, you had a plane crash, an explosion that incinerated everybody, dropped gigantic buildings that weren't even hit dropped. Yeah. And for some reason, the only thing that survived the 3,000 degrees that it would take to melt the steel beams, but the one thing could do that, a passport in a little plastic sliver of
which we all know. We all take passports on domestic flights too. By the way, that's something that we all do. I always carry mine when I'm traveling. Just
when you're going from Boston to New York or something, you better have your passport when you land at LaGuardia.
Yeah.
It all makes sense. And so there we go. So I guess the thing to do really is probably look around the fire scene when it's all over for a passport. That's the game. That's all
the
you.
next
That's
yeah.
what the fire investigators are going to do. I'm sure they have a passport team that goes into the fire afterwards, where everything is burned, to look for passports. They're kind of like a black box in a plane, if you think about it. They can survive a plane crash and explosions and all. Actually, I think the black box are made out of passports.
That would be, yes, exactly. Man, that material is so high tech.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's where we are now. We got 8 fires going, but some of them are contained, some of them aren't.
Yeah.
I'm sure Black Rock was first on scene before the firemen even got there. Like the executives of Black Rock showed up at the fireman scene to, evaluate what the future held for that particular community.
Yeah. So the two big, I'm just going to give an update right this moment in real time. The Palisades fire, which is the largest one, is burning 22,000 acres. 22,000 acres. 11% containment status. 11%. We have the other big one, the Pasadena, we talked about earlier. It's called the Eaton fire. 14,000 acres. 15% containment. So that's where we are on day 4 of this thing. Now the ones that have been put out, the Sunset one has been handled. That one's good. That's the one closest to us, the Hollywood one. The Creek fire has been put. That one's at 80% containment. But there's several other ones around us. I don't have all of them listed here, but those are the two biggest ones are still full blown. And so, like I said, they're saying this. The largest disaster we've had in the history of this state by far, leaps and bounds. And it's looking like it's on the 7th biggest disaster in our human history, as far as acres and destruction and damage goes. Lives, I would say we're in kind of good shape there. I mean, obviously there's been some deaths. We're going to find out a lot more, but the last I heard, they're only reporting still only single digit deaths at this point. But that number's certainly going to go up. And I'll just say, I have to say, there was a report in Malibu when this broke out on the Highway 1. There's a lot of high end restaurants there. There's like Morton's. There's a few other ones. All those restaurants are gone. There were eyewitnesses that said that people in one of those restaurants, I don't know if it was Morton's, it's the one next door, that was said to nobody made it out of that restaurant. So if I didn't know any better, I would say on a Tuesday night in Malibu, there were more than 8 or 9 people in that restaurant alone that did not make it out, that were burnt to death. So those were eyewitnesses that said that. So again, we don't have those numbers just yet, but that just hearing that off of night 1, that was Tuesday. It's insane that like so we're gonna still have to collect that data, but again, like the amount of acres that are burnt and gone compared to the deaths, I hope that number doesn't go up too much higher.
Wow. I tell you what this makes me think of. I just brought to mind, and I'll get a thought, a comment from you on this. Not related, but related. When you said a couple of things, they cut over 17 million from the budget for the fire department. They fired, God only knows how many fires because they refused to take something that was safe and effective, right? And I recall one of the reasons that people went after Kamala Harris was they said at one point, the state wanted to let a bunch of people out of prison. They had served served their time, whatever the case may be, and it was time for them to get out. And Kamala Harris was saying, no, we can't do that. We can't let them out because we need them. Yeah. Basically, they were using prisoners, basically slave labor, to fight fires. Well, you're firing the firemen because they won't take something that's safe and effective. You're cutting them millions and damn near $20 million from the fire budget. You're letting the friggin' reservoirs go dry. And the best you can do is slave labor with prisoners. That's who might I add, they can go out there and die in the fire. That's great danger for those people. They don't deserve that. They didn't get sentenced to the death penalty, number one. And number two, that's so you can't spend our tax dollars. You're like, we got to keep them in. Here's the issue. It's like $100,000 a year for prisoners. It costs more to pay for that prisoner in jail for a year than it would cost to pay the damn fireman.
Yeah. No, and we know for a fact that Kamala kept innocent people in jail for this purpose. Not possibly innocent, absolutely innocent. People who had false positives on their drug test. People that they're retroactively the court ordered. You let them go. Their time served. Gone, done, retroactive. They're out. No, we're keeping them in. So she knew they were supposed to be out. She kept them in. $2 an hour, forced labor, forced. So we're gonna throw you in this thing. It's not just exploiting them. This is torture. This is like, what if they didn't want to do it? You have to. Here's $2 an hour. Get in there. Good luck, man. Good luck.
Well, one of the things
I'm glad you brought that up, because that leads to the problem as well here that Kamala was part of starting here, and here we are seeing the results.
And one of the things I've seen, as I said, I come from law enforcement. One of the things they do with prisoners is this. Okay, look, you're stuck in this prison for whatever. You might have done some terrible crime, whatever the case may be, you're in this prison. But then they come to the prisoner and they say, look, the ones they don't force, their option is, well, you can go out and you can do this, and it's hard work and it's difficult and it's dangerous, but you'll get out of the prison and you'll ride down the road and you'll see things, and we may stop and get you some food in a restaurant, and you'll get out of the prison. So for a guy who's got 20 years, 10 years, even 5 years, right? Some guys in for 5 years for most likely drugs, right? And he's in, and his option is to stay in here and stare at the four walls, or maybe risk his life, but at least he gets the hell out of here for a day or a couple days. Yeah. They're going to take it. They're in, you know what I mean? And I ain't defending the prisoner. They might have done something that they earned. They earned their time, right? But you put a person in a position where you ask them to go out and risk their life, and the other option is to sit there and stare at four walls. They're going to take it.
Yeah. And so we're talking about it. That sounds to me like
it's
the
definition of people.
It sounds like a definition of mandate, where do you want to participate in society? Then do this. We didn't force you. We didn't force you to put the thing in your thing, but if you want to be X'd out of society, then go ahead, say no, and we'll see how you like it. And these are nonviolent. A lot of them are nonviolent offenders.
Drugs,
talking about marijuana possession. So this is when a judge ordered, no, Kamala, you got to let them out, because the laws have adjusted in California, so that crime isn't really a crime that deserves this prison time. You got to get them out now. So at that point, yes, they should be out of jail. You're giving them this choice: do you want to participate in society or not? Huh? So that's why we're using the word forced, because in that context, it's a bully technique, it's a baiting technique, it's a shaming technique, and putting people in desperate situation where they have no choice. That I'm going to use the word forced.
Well, let me add this, and I'll say this because I have a family member who's in a young woman in her 20s. She got married to a nice young guy. He got a job as a fireman. She has a job. He has a job as a fireman, right? And I'm like, oh, that's great. He's a fireman. It's a respectable job, and he can help and save people, pull people out of burning cars, and he can get have a retirement, have a decent salary to raise a family, things of that nature, right? So a average working class person can get a job as a fireman and hopefully, ideally, raise a family and have 2.5 kids as a minivan. Not that they get in a minivan, right? Whatever the hell they want. But it's an option. It's a working class option, right? But what do? You come in, you won't take the safe and effective option here, will you, buddy? So you fire all of these, maybe thousands of people who are working class people who now don't have the option that they would have to raise a family or whatever it is they want to do with their lives. Paint, who knows? Okay. And you replace them with prison labor or nobody. You see what I mean? You replace them. So you get rid of having to pay a regular old working class schmuck to do a good job to help his community and to have a better life. Oh, no, we can't pay you whatever you're going to pay him, 70, 80,000, I don't know, whatever you pay a damn fireman. We can't pay you that, right? So we'll take a prisoner that the taxpayers are paying $100,000 a year to keep the prisoner. It costs the taxpayers more for the prisoner to fight fires than it would a fireman. But we got to add something. But it's a for-profit prison. So the corporation that owns the prison gets the money. Might I add, here's something a lot of people might not know. So this for-profit prison has this prisoner in, and they get $100,000 a year, probably more for this prisoner. They send this prisoner out. In some instances, they work in fields. They work in factories building things, right? They're firemen. So this for-profit prison sends this prisoner out. They get paid for that prisoner. The for-profit, now I send you prisoner out. I'm getting paid for your labor. And you get $2 a day. So the taxpayer pays the for-profit prison to keep the guy in there. The poor bastard got caught with a little bit of weed or some coke or whatever it was. He probably more likely needs some kind of rehabilitation for maybe a drug habit than anything else.
Like Hunter Biden, right?
Yeah,
like,
he stole a few things to feed his heroin habit. The guy needs help. He needs, but it would be cheaper for us to put the guy in a rehab center. But no, we pay the private prison of taxpayers $100,000 to keep this bastard in there. Then the private prison gets money from the state for their labor. Oh, by the way, who pays that? The taxpayers. We're paying the private prison twice for this labor when we could have just paid some poor young guy who wants a decent job, who's working in the mini mart. We could have paid him a decent salary to be the fireman. So it cost us twice as much. And might I add, the fireman is trained for that job and equipped for that job, where this poor guy doesn't know what he's doing. He's thrown out into the fire zone to run aimlessly about and probably die.
This is our prison industrial complex at its finest, Garland. This is the crime bill and everything that our trusted Democrats, the good guys, all helped coordinate long ago. And here we are. This is another result of that brilliant time that Biden and Clinton and all the stuff we know very well. I just hope more people here can start waking up to the fact that there's nobody's working for us. Nobody's got our back. Joe Biden doesn't have our back. Gavin Newsom doesn't have our back. That's not the case, and I think it's time people see that. Is it okay? I want to give a shout out to some. I want to have a positive thing because I realize we've covered a lot.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. We've got a few more minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, so this needs to be said. So the people on the ground here, the people, the residents of LA that are not in flight or fight mode, the ones that have the ability to help people, have been doing that. And I want to give a shout out to people on the ground that have been at the Pasadena area where there's the fire victim center there. There's one here closer in Beverly Boulevard here. There's a bunch of them. They're scattered around, and the people that are organizing over there, and we know for a fact because my wife Leslie, who works with us on the homeless left, she went out. She's gone out there several days in a row now, and has noticed that there's so many people giving and helping and giving food. You know who's not there? FEMA. You know who's not there? There's no government officials helping. There's nobody helping with that should be doing it. The people are doing it, and they're helping with stray animals. There's dogs. There's cats. There's people. There's people suffering. And in these centers, there's people that are there that are. I have to give that shout out that there are LA residents that do care enough that they're loading these places with help right now. So there are services available. And if people want to help, they can go to the Humane Society, any of the social media Humane Society. Pasadena is the one that has been a lot of generosity going there. But I will say this, and this goes back to the cop thing. This is unfortunate that you have all this help, and then you have police showing up and saying you guys have to go. That's too much help. So they've broken up some of the help. So that's another topic. And again, that's kind of a downer to it. But I want people to know that the people on the ground, the people not in power, the people not getting paychecks from whatever the state or the military industrial complex, wherever they get their paychecks from, the people on the street, on the ground, they're helping. And that says something about us here in California. The people with nothing are helping. That's what it says. And I think that says something about humanity in general. It says that we can fight this prison industrial complex, the profit over people system. We can fight this because there should be more of us than them. And we need people to know that that's happening. And you can participate too, even if you're not here. Just go to the Humane Society social media, and you can find out how to get involved and help people that are suffering right now here that have lost everything in the last 3-4 days here.
Wow. Well, thanks a lot. Matt Weinglass is an activist. He's a writer. He's a director. He's a producer. He's done a lot of good work, and he's done a lot of good work with everything from Gaza and Palestine to Ukraine, and you name it. He's on the right side of all the things that you need to be on the right side of. Hey, tell people where they can follow you and find all of your the stuff that you're doing. You're over there on Rumble and all of that stuff, Matt.
Yes, we're over on Rumble, The Homeless Left. You guys can find us there. If you haven't heard of Rumble, that's a place where we don't get censored. We're still part of the surveillance state, that's for sure, but at least they let us have our conversation. So that's where we do our interviews. That's where we do all of our stuff. We're working on some documentaries. We got some other film projects here, but journalism is needed right now, especially here in LA. And that's why we do the show, The Homeless Left. So follow us there. And you can follow me at Matt Weinglass on Twitter. Same thing on Twitter. We know we're part of the surveillance state. We know there's shadow banning and stuff, but at least they're not canceling our accounts, so we can have engagement. So follow, if you guys are still on Twitter, follow me there, Matt Weinglass, and The Homeless Left on Rumble.
Let me just see one thing. Let me show just before we go, just one more thing. There we go. So just in case you think we're joshing you, there we go. So there you go. That's kind of where there's a perfect example of how we got where we are. A strange priorities things going on here. People can take any position they want on it. Certainly, we understand how the YouTube fact checkers feel about that, so we're not gonna. The bottom line is they ain't there for whatever reason. That you can say it's right or wrong. You certainly know how Matt and I feel now. Perhaps in hindsight, perhaps some of the actions that they took to keep us safe weren't as effective as they said as they had considered them to be. They should call all of those guys back and give them all of their money and back time and all that kind of stuff. At any rate, thanks a lot, Matt, and I look forward to having you back on soon. We got plenty to talk about.
Thank you, Garland.
All right, everybody, thanks a lot. Don't forget, we got a join button now. So you can click on the join button and become a member. Certainly, there's lots of ways. If you can afford to support the channel, I certainly appreciate it. Even if you can't, doesn't matter. Just keep the money for your family if you can't afford it. But here's the thing that everybody can do to help. Share this on all your social media platforms. You know how shadow banned we are. You know, Matt, I was looking at the analytics for my channel, right? And it was like over a 3-day period, I had like 60,000 views, right? I had three new subscribers.
That doesn't, no. That's
60,000 views, 3 subscribers. I looked over a 2-year period, right? Over the 2-year period, my channel doubled in size as far as the number of viewers that I have. I got 54% less subscribers.
No.
Dropped it over in half. Doubled the number of views, doubled everything. Doubled. No, wait a minute. What was it? It was one of the. I'm confused. Wait a minute. The number of subscribers doubled, but the number of views dropped by 54%. You know, it's like the things never match up. It's like, gee, the more people who are members of my channel, the less people watch it. The more, when you look at the analytics for it, it's like none of it ever makes sense. How do I get, you know, it's like you look for a week. I'm telling you, if you look at the number of even when I look, what I do now is every day now I'm going to write down the number of subscribers, because I'm like, it'll say, hey, good news, you're getting 1,000 subscribers a month. And I'll look, and the number of subscribers that I have has gone up like 1,500 viewers in the last 6 months, but I've been getting 1,000 subscribers a month. None of it makes sense.
That's called shadow banning, Garland, and you know, it's not even the worst they can do. Now, of course, we know why. We talked about this on The Homeless Left with Craig Pasta Jardula, who also has had this issue with Convo Couch, Truthwire. He works with Fiorella out in Moscow, and we know all the problems we've had, and RT and everything that's gone wrong with the canceling, the censoring. But the shadow banning is the hardest one to detect. So like you're saying, it's challenging because they're not sending you a notice. They're not saying you violated anything. They're not giving you a little punishment or penalty box. They're just doing it like behind, like you're like, wait a minute, these numbers aren't lining up, and there's no explanation for it. That's called shadow banning, and it sucks. And I think you should keep track of it. Yes, write everything down. We're having to do that too. But yeah, we have to. We know what the issues are. The issues are you talk about Israel, you talk about big pharma, you talk about election integrity. Those are the 3 ones. So you guys know those are the 3 issues. Those are the 3 issues. I think in that order. That's how we've kind of determined it. It's
Yeah.
Israel, big pharma, election integrity. Those are how they're going to get you. So if you're having honest discussions about those issues, you're going to have these problems. Shadow banning, punishments of sorts, termination. Our YouTube channel got terminated. Got just terminated. So that's why we were on Rumble. And that's what we're doing there, because we didn't even have a chance to pick up momentum right when we were getting momentum. Bam. So you guys know watching.
FreePalestine.video. I don't know
Yeah.
if you're familiar with them. Their YouTube channel, just like last week, the FreePalestine.video. They got a website and all that kind of stuff, right? And I have the guy on, Latham Maroof, every week, right? Well, their new YouTube channel got nuked, and all they did sent something that just says, "Oh yeah, you're violating our terms of service," blah blah blah, but nothing. And here's the thing about it: for the last 4 years, anything Ukraine, Russia would get you nuked. If you would say, "Well, perhaps I think maybe we're a little out of line with what we're doing in Ukraine," boom, your channel's nuked. You're in the world of trouble, right? My thoughts is this: okay, Trump's in, and his people are like, "Oh, we want freedom of speech." They're going to replace it with Palestine stuff. So now they're going to say, "Oh no, you can say anything you want about Ukraine." But if you say, "Well, perhaps we're doing some bad things in Palestine," whoop, channels nuked. They're just going to replace the reason that they use to ban, to censor, etc. I don't believe that the new regime is going to do anything about free speech. In a way, they will about the things that doesn't piss. I'll put it like this: the things that pissed off the quote liberal class, or whatever you want to call them, you'll be able to say whatever. But when it comes to the Gaza issue, that'll be the one that's going to get everybody nuked. The bottom line is, it ain't going to be free speech. Free speech means if the government says something, you can say, "I don't agree." Free speech means our free that, and I was with the ACLU for years before I resigned in protest. I was on the national board of directors. I resigned in protest over this crap. But I always make this point: the only speech that needs to be protected by the First Amendment is unpopular speech. Popular speech does not need protection. The First Amendment very specifically protects unpopular speech.
That's right.
So if I want to say something about Ukraine or Gaza, that's unpopular with the government. That is what needs to be protected. You don't need me to protect me from saying, "Oh, I don't know, the latest Snow White movie is great." That doesn't need to be protected.
That's right. That's correct. It's always about the unpopular speech. And I should have thrown in absolutely. You're going to be called a Putinist if you have any critique on Ukraine. So that I'll throw that up at number one along with Israel. And like you said, they switched those out. So that's the number one thing you can't do. That's the no you can't do. Big pharma, we've seen it all. And then this election stuff, you're not allowed. There's certain things you can't say. And that's how they get you in the algorithm, and that's how they target you, and you get red flagged. And then they make an example out of you, and they say, you can't get back in line. And it tells other people when they see you get punished, it tells them, if you were thinking of doing this, this is what will happen to you. So get back in line, keep your mouth shut, or go do something else. Don't do this, because this is what happens to people who do this. Look at Julian Assange. We could talk all day about that. There you go. Here's what happens when you tell the truth about the military industrial complex, CIA, all that stuff. We make an example out of you. That's what happens.
Yep. All right. Thanks a lot, Matt Weinglass. Everybody follow him over there on Rumble, The Homeless Left. And did you say you were on X?
Yeah, you on Twitter X. You can follow me, Matt Weinglass. We're also there, Homeless Left, on Twitter X as well. Yes.
All right. Keep up the good work. Thanks a lot, everybody. Share this on all your social media platforms and all that stuff. We're out.
Thank you.